Welcome back to Nothing But Nets. I am joined again with Nate the Great, my NBA expert, to get into the D'Lo for DFS trade. Nate, I'll turn it over to you. Just real quick, introduce yourself and give us your initial thoughts, your preliminary thoughts on the trade that consists of D'Angelo Russell and 3 second-round picks, 2027, 2030, 2031, for Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton.
Didn't we get one more piece on that deal, Gary?
We did. We did. We did. Max Lewis. You're right.
Maxwell Lewis. You never know. You absolutely never know.
Well, first of all, I want to PSA. The Nets traded Amari Bailey from the G League yesterday. So my favorite Long Island Net is no longer a Long Island Net.
There was a while people thought Amari Bailey was Ace Bailey's cousin, and that's why we had him on the team to recruit get Ace in here, which is not the case.
No relation from what I'm aware of. Yeah.
We're still in the Ace race despite not having Amari Bailey. But Gary, thanks for having me on. I think a lot of you guys know me. Happy New Year, happy holidays, all that good stuff. I hope it's been relaxing and a good one for you guys. It definitely has for me. This was a nice Christmas or Hanukkah present for Nets fans. I think you and I discussed this, maybe going back to the summer, about the possibility of D'Lo. We had conversations about. I never loved D'Lo as that playoff bench role that, unless he's really hitting threes, he's not going to give you a lot on the other end. And on LA, he just became almost like a tertiary playmaker. Which is just not D'Lo's role. It's not his strength, is playing off the ball and as a third or fourth playmaker on a team. Especially with the emergence of why am I blanking on the kid from Arkansas? Reeves, AD, LeBron. There's not enough basketballs for D'Lo. So this was a dream destination for a lot of Nets fans, and in a season that, although we're seeing more wins than a lot of us expected, although I think you and I both took the over. So I thought, Jordy would have the guys playing how they're playing. He's shown to be a very good coach and a first year coach that cares too, which in the NBA, unfortunately, goes a long way in the regular season if you actually care these days. So I guess it's exciting for, I told this story to you and some other people. I have a kid who I've been coaching and working with since he was 9 years old, who is the biggest Nets fan in the world. He grew up watching Brook Lopez, who's number one, and he grew up watching D'Angelo Russell, who's his number two. He's a freshman in college now, and he's excited to come home on winter break and see D'Angelo Russell. He's going to stay to see D'Angelo Russell. So, people can mock Nets fans all they want, and a couple of season ticket holders there are, but to the ones that grew up in this generation and era with that, fun, I still know kids that do that dance on the bench that all those guys were doing, 8 years ago, that it means a lot to them. So as you can hate it all you want, but if Darrelle Revis came home for a day for the Jets, I would be happy for a day. If I saw David Wright sign a 5-day contract, it would bring back my 10-year-old heartbeat. So for those guys and young kids that experience that playoff run, if you can call it, you love the trade. You weren't getting a first round pick, or they would have done that. You got 3 seconds, which if you work your magic right, you can get late into the first, or if you get lucky enough, it's an early second, which at times is more valuable than a late first due to guaranteed money. So you like the package, and then hey, you got a Sean Marks typical prototype wing, Maxwell Lewis, where you just look at his wingspan, you look at his height, you look at how he defends, and it doesn't matter if he could spell basketball. You knew that our GM was making that move for him. So he's not an exciting prospect, but he's not, Jose Alvarado at 6'1". You never know, if a guy can shoot a corner three, he can make $20 million in 4 years and play defense. So there's always that type of potential, which is you got to be a little bit excited for a Nets fan for if you're a Nets fan, for what you gave up.
Yeah, and I wanted to comment on Max Lewis real quick. He is, I said that when they traded for him, he's a prototypical Sean Marks guy. 6'7", wins, 6'10".
I stole that line from you. Absolutely, yeah. You said that 100%.
Yeah. I wanted to get into this. Dorian Finney-Smith the fans liked him. I liked him. I wish him the best. Like, I wanted them to trade Dorian Finney. I wanted the Nets to trade Cam Johnson because Cam Johnson sucks. I wanted them to trade Dorian Finney-Smith because I like Dorian Finney-Smith. He was a great net, and I wished him the best. I want him to go somewhere where he can compete. And then on his way out, he said this: if you play in Brooklyn, you know what I mean. You don't want to be the little brother in the city. So I'm finally the big brother. It feels good. Look, I'm not arguing with the accuracy of that statement. Clearly, the Brooklyn Nets are the little brother in the city. But you don't go up to the fat, ugly girl and tell her, I'm not going to date you because you're fat and ugly. You just don't date her, right? Like, not everything that's true needs to be said out loud, especially for a guy we liked, we respected. There was a rumor last year at the deadline that he was going to get traded back to Dallas. They sat him out, and then they said, hey, we're not trading you. I don't know if that has something to do with it, with his resentment towards Marks. But why would Finney-Smith make this comment on his way out the door? The fans loved him. He was a good net. Like, why do this?
It's one word. It's emotions. Like, right. It's easy in our perspective as fans to look at this and say why, but we've all been fired before. We've all heard no from a job that we wanted. We've all and if someone asked you, like, what do you think of that guy who didn't hire you? You would say I won't use the words, right? Even though you know nothing about the guy. So you would say that due to emotions, right? So he's, unfortunately, I don't know why he was in his feelings, so to speak, regarding the Nets. Like, this is what you wanted, and they gave you a good destination too. You brought up last year's trade. That would be a little wild if you're still holding on to that years later as a pro, making millions of dollars. And, like, again, you'll play your best if you're focused on what your task is that day and what your workout. Like, he's a pro. I'm not breaking any news here. I'm sure he wasn't, like, emotionally caught up in not being traded back to Dallas last year. But at the same time, look at Dorian Finney-Smith's career. He's been on teams, like good teams. He's been that good role player on good teams. All of a sudden, you feel like this team is responsible for now not knocking you down in your career. Like, no one thinks of DFS as they did on the Nets, as they did on the Mavericks, period. That's because we lose. It's like players like that don't hold as much value when they lose. It is what it is. Like, Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges held so much value because they were young and on a winning basketball team that made the finals. If they were on the Spurs winning 19 games, just like Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell, be like, but do they impact winning? We all thought these guys have major impact on winning. Yeah, they do when you're next to Kevin Durant and LeBron James, or a lot of us can. You just look better. It's the bottom line. So it's tough that he said that for Nets fans, especially because it seemed like he was a good net, and just in general, he was a guy that swallowed his words. It seems like for the most part, that really didn't say a lot, that really didn't give a lot to the media. So I would just go back to just. It's emotions, it's just emotions. He wanted to get out. He's finally out. He feels like the chains are unlocked. And he said a couple words he'll probably regret when he's trying to sell shoes in Brooklyn in 10 years when he's retired. And everybody's bringing up this. It's just, you don't want to burn bridges. You know that. Like, you might end up in a net in 8 years when Dylan Harper and Brandon Ingram are running the Eastern Conference Finals, and now they want to trade for him. And it's like, then the headline is, oh, he's back on the little brother. So nothing good can come of that. Nothing good can come from fighting the fans. We all know that, and he'll learn his lesson. It's not the end of the world. It does suck, though.
A little backstory to that. Right before he was traded, maybe a month or two before he was traded to the Nets in the Kyrie Irving deal, he had built a brand new house in Dallas. So he lives in Dallas. That's where his house is.
He's very close to Luka. He's one of Luka's best friends. That was Luka's
Luka's best friend.
Came in. Thinks very highly of him.
Yeah. Then the Nets told him that they were trading him back to Dallas. I'm sure that excited him. I'm going to a team with a chance to compete. I'm going back home where I just built my huge house. And then the Nets said, nah, actually, psych, we're not trading you. And then he ends up getting traded. At that time, it was rumored that the Lakers had offered 2 firsts for him. And this is last year at the deadline, 2 ones for him, 2 protected ones. And Dallas offered an unprotected one for him. And he didn't get traded. Now he gets traded this year, and he gets traded for a bunch of 2s. And I'm just wondering if it's a knock on his ego to be traded for a bunch of 2s a year later.
I don't think it's a knock on his ego at all. I mean, a bunch of 2s versus a 1. We had this conversation earlier, especially on a team like a really good team, is not a major difference. But let me ask you this follow-up, Gary. If I was your boss and you lived in New York City, and I said that we were about to transfer you and your family to Dallas, Texas, the hometown where you love Texas. And then I sent you a year later to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
What would you call me on the way out?
I wouldn't have kind words for you. That's for sure.
So,
That's for sure.
Every situation is different. Like you said, you just don't know. You gave that good insight about like his house he built. He's best friends with Luka. He thought he's going home to back where he was comfortable in his career, and all of a sudden the Nets said, "Oh, we wanted one more second that they wouldn't give to us. You're staying here in Brooklyn." And he's like, "Are you like I'll get you the second somehow." You just don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know the situation of everyone, and maybe he might be the one guy that loves Texas more than you. We never know.
Maybe. Who knows? Yeah. The next thing I want to get into was bringing in D'Angelo Russell. The love affair with him, that 18-19 team, that 17-18, 18-19 Kenny Atkinson team that the fans love. That built a lot of net fans. The 12 net fans, organic net fans, under the kind of became net fans with that team. The fact that it's D'Angelo Russell. Do you think that was a major part of the trade? Not that it's a salary dump, not just that it's a expiring salary, but because it's D'Angelo Russell and because he has that history that he's our old friend. Was that a major selling part of the trade?
That's absolutely a major part of the trade. Absolutely. I mean, if the Nets brought in Gordon Hayward, would you be excited?
No.
But if Utah brought in Gordon Hayward for the last year of his career, the Mormon fans would go crazy. It is what it is. Like we have our attachments to guys some of us literally grew up with. Like when Jason Kidd came back to the Nets, I absolutely didn't care if he had no interest in coaching. He was a Net again. Like it was. I could watch Nets highlights for 2 weeks and be excited of watching old Jason Kidd in Jersey and those gray unis. Like that it was worth it for me. It didn't work out, but like it's the same thing. They could lose every game, and it's going to be worth it for them. In fact, that would absolutely make it worth it for them. If you bring D'Lo home and you get to lose every game for the number one pick, like they're in a win-win situation. D'Lo doesn't impact winning enough where he's gonna put you over a certain mark at all. And not at this point.
I wanted to segue that. Let me because I had conversations with Net fans who just remember 18-19 and him taking them to the playoffs as their best player. And I said, look, that was a one-off. He went to Golden State and was the best player when Steph got hurt. They were the worst team in basketball by a mile. They were horrible, right? I said that as a winning piece, Dorian Finney-Smith is a far more valuable chip for winning than D'Angelo Russell. What are your thoughts on that comment?
Yeah, you can't argue that. I mean, it goes back. I had this conversation with you about a different player, and I'm forgetting who, but if I'm the Toronto Raptors, D'Angelo Russell might have a slightly more impact on winning. I might get from 16 to 19 wins because I have a lead guard that can help me beat, the Memphis Grizzlies without Ja on a random Wednesday night. Like absolutely, where Dorian Fifth doesn't help you. But you're talking about winning a championship in this question. So LeBron James kind of just answered that for you. And I explained it earlier with being a tertiary ball handler. Like he has turned into a catch and shoot guy. That's not his strength. He's not a catch and shoot guy. And then you got to figure out who he's guarding on the other end. Luckily, your point guard is LeBron James, so you could figure out D'Lo can guard X Max Strus or whoever in the corner and chase him around. But he's not going to impact winning on a winning team. Like again, is D'Lo ever going to play on the Celtics? No. Is Dorian Finney-Smith going to play on the Celtics? Yes. Is D'Lo going to dribble the ball and play make on the Knicks? No. Will DFS be a 3-and-D guy and be able to switch with McCall and every other long wing they have there? Yes. Like it's winning teams want guys like DFS and guys like we talked about the McCall Bridges trade last for forever, and winning teams want that. But I'm not saying, Emmanuel Quickly and D'Lo don't help you win games. Again, if you're that bad team that needs a ball handler because it's either who knows, some backup point guard or Emmanuel Quickly. There's not a lot of options, and you do need a guy that can, get you going in the pick and roll a little bit in this league. It's just it's what it is. So no, D'Lo does not impact winning on winning teams. D'Lo impacts winning on terrible teams where he might get you 3 or 4 wins. He's not going to make
but that's what we're talking about. Like we said, like he'll score 40 on some random Tuesday in Washington, and the fans will go crazy. Everyone comes the next day wearing their D'Lo jersey, and then he'll be basically useless again.
Yeah, but also that one, D'Lo's worse than he was 5 years ago. The Nets are worse than they were 5 years ago. Everyone's in a worse situation than they are. So it's going to be great nostalgia. It's going to be like, I remember when Tracy McGrady came to the Knicks. Do you remember when Tracy McGrady got traded to the Knicks?
I do. I remember when Steve Francis got traded to the Knicks. I remember when Marbury. Yeah, I remember all these guys they brought in.
It was a blip in time. It was the one night of my life where I actually got ripped off for tickets. And I'm a big ticket guy. I was actually selling Mets tickets throughout high school, college. I had my own ticket thing going. But at this night, I was so excited for T-Mac, I didn't fold the perforated edges to see that they didn't fold and that they were fake. And I got scammed out of T-Mac tickets. But it was the same hype. That team was absolutely terrible. That team was absolutely not going to win. I don't know if it was David Lee or Chris Duhon or what shitters were on that team. No, not shout out to those guys. They were good pros, but they're not going to get you into the playoffs or even winning playoff series. But no, it reminds me of the same thing. It's like, again, T-Mac wasn't a Knick, but it was like for Knicks fans, it was like, oh my God, we got T-Mac. Like he might score 30 one night and the Garden's going to erupt as we lose a close game by 2. So you're looking forward to that same circumstance where like D'Lo's going off for 30. It's a close game. Nets fans are in it. You end up losing by 4. It's not the end of the world, but yeah, you're not looking at a play-in game because or hoping for a play-in because you have D'Lo now. Like that's not what it is. And again, look at the rest of the roster around him. Look at, I don't know, and you know better than anyone, like if you're a guard, at some point you lose your first step. And then you lost everything. And D'Lo was a very quick player. I'm not saying he was fast or explosive, or he was a very quick player. He had so is that crossover the same? We'll see. He wasn't doing a lot of that in LA, and it's going to be fun. That's all. It's like it'll be like watching Spencer Dinwiddie 2 years ago. Are you going to win? No. Is he going to score 30 some nights? Yeah.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't suck as much as Dinwiddie, but I know that the all-in tank crew, I know Dylan at Net Press is listening, saying, "No, I hope he sucks worse than Dinwiddie because we lose every game." But D'Lo, Cam Thomas for me, like I'm geeking out. D'Lo, Cam Thomas backcourt, I'm geeking out on that. Like those are my 2 favorite Nets post like Jason.
You know who else is geeking out on that, Gary? You know who else will be geeking out on that backcourt?
Who?
The opposing team's backcourt that night.
Oh, that's for sure. Yeah, they're licking their chops.
Thrilled.
This is 40. Yeah, 40. Yeah.
2 guys can call a screen for him, switch off at any time, and just shoot over him. Be a lot of fun. Yeah.
The next thing I want to get into was like we mentioned this a little earlier. Last year there were real rumors for DFS when he was viewed a little differently. 2 ones from LA and a unprotected one from Dallas. Like those, that was what the return was for him at that time. Is this just another example of Sean Marks overplaying his hand and miscalculating the situation and then having to deal with a decreased value player?
So say the offer from last year again.
Last year, there were rumored 2 offers. One was an unprotected first from Dallas, and there was 2 highly protected ones from LA. I don't know the exact protections on it, but they said they were highly protected. So I'm guessing one was lottery protected, and one was probably like top 20 protected. But that was the return for him. Now they got 3 2s. Is this just a matter of
I don't consider it a major loss, right? It comes down to it's kind of the argument a lot of Giants fans are having these days, or Jets fans are having, in terms of I want the 4th pick over the 7th pick. You want the guy that can identify talent, and then you want the teams and the coaches that can develop that talent. If you're Oklahoma City and you can identify talent, they don't like. How many times did Oklahoma City have the number 1 pick? It wasn't it wasn't the 76ers like trust the process. We're just gonna try for the number 1 pick and then hit on 1 or 2 of them and eventually be good. Like they have picks, but they're good at targeting players and moving around in the draft to get what they want. So if the Nets are able to target those guys like they've continued to do in the late of the first round, and they see a Clowney or they see a Claxton or they see go down and down the list of guys we've gotten in the late teens and 20s that turned out to be, if not gotten major second contracts, good role players for their rookie years and can impact the game on the court. So I want that. I want the team. I want the coach. I want the GM. If we can identify talent, does it matter that you lost that on a protected first that might be 28th, and now you got 3 seconds, and one of them ends up being 35th in 2027, and you got 2 more, and Maxwell Lewis ends up playing 30 games for you in 2028? I'm making stuff up, but again, it's not. You didn't lose out on the number 1 pick. You didn't lose out on anything major. You didn't lose out on a Toronto Raptors unprotected first. You lost out on, you made it very clear on what you lost out of. It was they're protected ones that were going to be very late. So, and they were rumors. There's lots of factors going into this. Nothing was concrete in stone. So I'm not. I don't think they cost any part of their future by hanging on to him for 1 more year and getting 3 seconds over a late protected one. Identify good players, develop good players, and win basketball games.
The other thing I wanted to ask you was the other trade option that was reported was with Memphis for Conchar and a highly protected one, and I think it was top 20 protected for DFS and a 2. And this year's 2. So this would be a fairly decent 2, right? Like 35, probably 36, something in that range. So DFS and this year's 2025.
Is Memphis that bad?
Round. What was that?
Is Memphis that bad?
No. The Nets second round. So it was DFS and the Nets pick to Memphis for Conchar and a highly protected one.
It's still not moving a needle,
That's yeah.
I
would actually prefer this. Yeah.
Yeah, no. 3 seconds, and I don't want to give up this year's, because this year's going to be a high second, and Conchar is not going to be on the Nets in 2028, 2027 probably.
Or anywhere in the NBA.
Or anywhere. He is what he is. So he's Duncan Robinson light, who at this point can barely grab the court. So you're not missing out on anything. If anything, a guy like Conchar would actually win you some games, because he would just hit 6 threes one night and you'd be like, fuck, we just shouldn't have won this game and lost some picks in the lottery, and lost some slots rather. But I'm not losing sleep over Conchar or an unprotected first, especially if you're giving up a second this year.
The second would probably behoove them more because it's a high second, so it's not that much different than a late one, and it's not a guaranteed salary, it's not a guaranteed roster spot. It's just, if they like the guy, they can, the second round pick for a team like Memphis, who's already a salary cap hamstring, is probably a better option than a late one in reality.
Yeah, no. Most teams think that. It's kind of like the opposite effect in the NFL, where if you're in the late second, you kind of want to sneak into the one so you can get that extra 5th-year player option, and with the guaranteed money in first and second rounds, but you still have control. You kind of want the second rounder if you think your guy is going to be there. Like Knicks wanted Tyler Kolek, and they identified that guy. They got him early in the second. They can have lots of options, move him to the G League and back and forth, and develop him a lot better than a first-round pick who's sitting on the end of the bench every night because he's not good enough to play, but you have minimal options on him, and you have to guarantee him all these years, and then you got to trade him like Memphis did too with Zaire Williams, something like that. It's just, they're granted he was a much higher pick, but it becomes dead money if they're not impact players.
I wanted to get back to D'Lo real quick. I said his value every day in LA was declining, and he's proven not to be a good playoff player. He was the primary scorer, primary ball handler in Brooklyn, was horrible in the playoffs. He went to Minnesota and was a secondary option, was horrible there. And then he went to the Lakers, where he was a true role player and was horrible in that role as well. I'm not hating. I'm just being factually accurate in what he did in the playoffs. I was starting to view him as a vet minimum type of guy. And I know like the book is kind of written on him. But if he goes to the Nets and averages 20 a game and 5 assists, can he get himself a decent, $15, $18 million a year contract next year? No shot.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Not at all. It's. And I mean, if you're looking like a team that just needs to fill up a salary cap, but that's not the guy you're paying. Like he's like you said, he's losing potential. He's losing value. He's not gonna. He impacts winning against the Pistons, not the Celtics. That's just who he is. He can beat up on Jaden Ivey, and he's that good of a pro, but he's not going to beat up on Jaylen Brown and a blitzing Al Horford. It's just they're two different sports almost at that point. So, has he lost a step? Does he still have that energy and that? I don't know. You'll see. I'd like to see him gain some like the Nets momentum back he did years ago. It would just be fun for the fans in Brooklyn if he had 7 nights in a row scoring 20. Like, and you're just like, wow, this is our guy. Every night he could score 20 and keep us in the game into the third quarter, and you know what I'm so. If he can be that guy, it would be exciting. But I'm trying to think of another player to compare him to at that time. But it's like you can't compare him to. He's like if Mike Conley couldn't play defense or pass the ball now. And Mike Conley still has value. I'm not. That's a bad comparison.
Yeah.
There's guys who just kind of maybe like it's like Dennis Schroeder in 6 years. It's like then who's gonna really want Schroeder? It's he needs the ball in his hands to score. He's not gonna defend. He's in 5 or 6 years he's gonna be the third or fourth playmaker on your team, and it's just like, yeah, he has value like in an open run, and he'll kill anybody. But I don't know, on an NBA court when there's just so much more going on, and he's not going to score the amount of points per possession to be a lead guard in the NBA ever again. So.
Karis LeVert makes $17 million a year. And that's kind of where I was comping at as. Now, I guess I'd rather have LeVert than Russell. But, I mean, can he get himself back to that position where it's like, okay, this is a sixth man on a good team? No?
No, not on a good team, because LeVert, like, you don't have to hide LeVert in the playoffs, right? Yeah, no, LeVert he could guard Jaylen Brown for a possession. When if D'Lo was ever on Jaylen Brown, he's in the post, and then you would have to send a double team, then the ball swinging, and then there's going to be an open three, and then you just have to hope they miss the open three. And it's like every possession is a battle. It's an absolute battle in the playoffs on defense. Like it's just not the same when not in this day and age anymore. Not with how the game is played and how two Europeans can sit in the corner and knock it down at a 70% clip. And so it's just like you can't even commit to a double team like you could 30 years ago. It's a completely different sport. So yeah, unfortunately, no. D'Lo in 1993 would absolutely have a longer career as a prime ball handler and playmaker, killing dudes in the mid range and off secondary chances. It's not the same sport anymore, unfortunately. Not on a winning team. Again, you can have that impact on a losing team, but then if you're a losing team, you want to sign young guys with potential and get fans excited. You're not selling tickets if you're the Atlanta Hawks and you got rid of Trae Young, but you signed D'Lo, who was an all-star 9 years ago.
Well, I'll be in the building with Nate on the 6th and the 8th, and I'm psyched to see D'Lo. Like, I am pumped to D'Lo, and Cam Thomas is back. I thought they were going to sit Cam for a while just out of precaution. Like, why bring him back? Cam's back. D'Lo's back. I got my all-time backcourt. I'm pumped. Like, I'm psyched to see D'Lo. I got a D'Lo jersey back. My wife put it in storage somewhere. I got to have her pull that out of storage. I got to bring my D'Lo jersey out of retirement.
You got to.
What is D'Lo's role? Well, last question to you. For the rest of this year, do you expect D'Lo to be on the team? Do you think he's a buyout candidate? Do you think they can flop him for a bunch of twos at the deadline? If not, what do you see his role here on the Nets for the next couple of months that he's here?
I think it's up in the air, but I think they want it to work out. So, I mean, obviously not work out in terms of like, again, make the play on or anything. I think they want it to work out for their fans for this 2025 season, where you're excited to experience the nostalgia of, like you just said, the nostalgia of D'Lo every night with the excitement potential of Cam Thomas every night. We're like, you and I are looking forward to go to Nets games because you're reliving that nostalgia. And is Cam going to drop 50? So it's like, that's fun as a sports fan, right? Like I'm going to the Jets game Sunday to see if Aaron Rodgers is going to throw number 500. But if Mike White was in, like there wouldn't be a lot going for you. So there are those certain moments that can excite you as a fan. Like I could bring up the Tracy McGrady example. You don't have to win a championship to be excited as a fan, as a sports fan. There are other things that can excite you, and this is going to excite you. But I brought up earlier, like if he could score 7 games in a row with 20 a night, that's the Nets' dream, I think, and then lose those games and be fun and exciting, right? But there's a chance where he struggles, right? And then he loses minutes to the young guys. And this becomes Cam Thomas's 2025 Nets, and he gets healthy and Clowney starts playing. And there's just, then it doesn't make sense for them to have him in the rotation because he's not playing well. He's not helping the young guys, and he's not the nostalgic piece scoring 20 a night that the Nets fans thought he'd be. Then I think there's that potential for a buyout and just like, hey, it's for both of us. It's been a good relationship. We can mutually part ways, and you can go find another team to try to win a championship on. But I do think they want it to work out. You saw the Nets tweet about D'Lo. It's like this is their like the social media team is going crazy. They're looking up the clips from years ago. Like this is exciting, and I think they want it to work. But it's absolutely not written in stone that it's gonna work, and that there's a chance that they go young and he's not playing great, and it doesn't work out to have him on your bench where he's doing the Brooklyn dance from 7 years ago. That wouldn't be the best look. Just part ways at that point. So I think it's still up in the air based on how D'Lo plays.
I like to see him here. Again, I think it's gonna be hard to trade him for really anything because why would a playoff team want him with his track record? What it is, it doesn't matter what role he played in. From the primary guy to a true role player, he was horrible in the playoffs every year. So I agree with it. I think he's gonna be here for the rest of the season. I don't think they're gonna resign him for sure. Although who knows?
Injuries.
If you could get him for $5 million a year, would you do it?
Yeah, well, yes, but because injuries change everything, you know that. Like, what if Peyton Pritchard and Drew Holiday went down for late in the season?
Yeah.
Right. What if McBride and Cam Payne
That's
got
a bad
hurt?
example, but what if Mikal Bridges got hurt on the Knicks or something like that? Because the Celtics ain't bringing him
No,
in.
not Mikal, but no, I'm not like there. That D'Angelo would be their campaign. Deuce McBride, that guy that comes in and be that secondary spark. And
so let me ask you this: like, because McBride's a quality player, who would you rather have? Just money, everything is the same. Just
come on,
McBride,
no, Gary. You know.
You already at McBride. You'd rather have McBride than
Who impacts
D'Lo?
winning in the playoffs? McBride made life hell. Absolute
I'm not saying you're wrong.
I'm
asking a legitimate question. I'm saying where are we valuing D'Lo at this point? That's all. That's what I'm trying to get a gauge.
No, it's scary. I mean, that's a scary question. I don't want to sound too much like a Knicks fan, but it's almost like I would take Deuce right now, even D'Lo in his prime in the playoffs, right? Because you just explained it. You just went over it. He's not winning playoff series. He's not a dominant against great defenses in the playoffs where everything every night is prepared for you and studied about how we're going to play and how we're going to guard this screen and how we're going to play the Nets and with D'Lo. I want the guy who can absolutely, who makes Tyrese Halliburton pass the ball and have someone else dribble up the court, and then Tyrese doesn't touch the ball again until there's 8 seconds on the shot clock because he's just in his sleeve. So there's so much value to that guy. I know you said not mentioning the contract. Deuce happens to be on one of the best contracts in the league, but there's incredible value to a guy who can just be, especially in this day and age where no one wants to play defense. Like, yeah, I'll meet you at the 3-point line. Like, this guy is picking up full court on anybody in the league and just giving them hell. It's just not fun. Like, it's just so much. It's not, that you've played basketball. It's fucking pick up and you got this little fucking guy with an energy bunny picking you up full court. Yeah, yo, Gary, you take it up. I'll walk out. I'll chill in the corner. I'm not doing this. Like, I don't have the energy.
That was kind of the last question that I had. I'm looking forward to it. Any final thoughts on this D'Lo trade, and when do you expect Cam Johnson to join DFS and move his way out of Brooklyn?
Cam's an interesting player, but he's played a lot better than you and I expected this year. So you would think he has some value.
Yeah.
You would think he has some value, but he also, like, he doesn't have the DFS value, in my opinion, where it's like, DFS he's wanted by Luka Doncic. He's wanted by LeBron James. These are guys who absolutely trust the defense and the offense and the decision-making of a DFS in the playoffs. Like, a guy who superstars want to play next to. Cam Johnson is not that guy. He's not the defender DFS is. But he has that, like, exciting, like, he's like, if you're a Minnesota team, do you want a wing that can score 6 or 7 threes a night, can put the ball on the ground for 1 or 2 dribbles? Like, there's things to like about him if you're a young.
He still looks like a baby giraffe learning how to ice skate every time he puts the ball on the floor. I get he's done it better this year. It still looks awful every time he puts the ball on the floor. It's like, just stand in the corner, bro. I'm trying to be fair to Cam Johnson, and I'm not trying to let my previous thoughts, because he's playing better this year, obviously. But
I mean, I'll give you this. He looks a little quirky, right? It looks a little quirky, but, like, you can see he's put the time in to put the ball on the floor and to learn how to play. He knew he would have that responsibility this year, and he put the work in with whoever trainer, whatever he did to learn how to put in his own, like you said, his own quirky fashion. He's not going 2 dribbles and laying it on your head. Like, it's just, he's not meeting you at the rim, but he's found his way to get good, makeable NBA shots off where it's surprising. And again, a team like, I don't know, does a Toronto, does that excite him? Like, does Detroit, does that excite him to replace Tobias Harris when that contract is up? Like, is he a future Tobias? I mean, all right, not Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is a much better one-on-one scorer and the pride of Long Island. Let me not insult Tobias Harris, but
pride of Dix Hills.
but you never know. Like Tobias Harris excited the Phillies so much where they thought that, you know what I'm saying. So there's teams, especially in this 3-point day and age, that it'll excite them. You never know. He's a 3-point shooting wing that's tall and long and. Yeah, he's having a good season on a bad team. It's not like he has no value.
All right, appreciate your time, Nate. We got to do this again. I'll see you next week at the Barclays.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. Happy New Year to all. We'll see you in 2025.
All right, it's December 31st. Happy New Year's from Texas to the world. Thank you, and God bless.